column, we must agree that there is first the unchanging form, ungenerated and indestructible, which neither receives anything into itself from elsewhere nor enters into anything else anywhere, invisible or otherwise imperceptible, that in fact which thinking has for its object. What is the object of knowledge? Forms. What is it you think? You think in terms of qualities and kinds of things, and so on and so forth. Forms. Second, that which bears the same name and is like the form, is sensible, is brought into existence, but is in perpetual emotion, like shadows and images images on a screen, you see, or in Plato's cave. Coming to be in a certain place, vanishing out of it. Apprehended by belief. That involves perceptions, but not knowledge. That's the second. Third is space. Everlasting, not admitting destruction, providing a situation for all things that come into being. It's self-apprehended without the senses by a sort of bastard reasoning, not even legitimate reasoning, to say when you think of empty space, you can't think of empty space. You sort of hypothesize it. Hardly even an object of belief. Well, he sums up the new paragraph halfway down the second column, 261. Let this then be given as the tale, summed up according to my judgment, that there are being, space, which is not anything, and becoming. Okay? Being, empty space, becoming. Three distinct things, even before the heaven came into being. Now, the nurse of becoming, being made watery and fiery, two of the elements, receiving the characters of earth and air, the other two elements, and qualified by all these other affections that go with these, had every sort of diverse appearance to the sight, because it was filled with the powers that were neither alike nor evenly balanced, and so on and so forth. So it's from these three that things are made. Before that, all was without proportion, without measure. And the conclusion then, on 263, the last paragraph, at last let us say that our discourse concerning the universe has come to an end, having received in full its complement of living creatures, mortal and immortal, this world has thus become a visible living creature, embracing all that is visible and an image of the intelligible, a perceptible God, supreme in greatness and excellence, in beauty and perfection, this heaven single in its kind and one. This universe. Okay. Well, that's the picture. The anthology follows that with a few pages from the Laws, where you get another hint of a causal argument for the existence of God. You get reference to the world soul, being like the human soul, being the source of motion. You get on 269 the recognition that the world soul is divine, but then the word God is used so broadly for all souls, alike divinities, you see. But what he seems to be doing is reiterating further, but in the Laws he makes more explicit than anywhere else, I think, in his writings, one, the concept of the shaper of the universe as the one supreme God. And the second, that this has profound moral implications. Because if we are to be like that one God, rationally ordering our lives, which is akin to his concept of justice, being just, being good, then, says Plato, that those who do not believe in God, atheists, should have no place in his ideal republic. You see, if what you want is a just society, they would be treasonous beings. And you get this utopian thinking on Plato's part, extending the idea of an ideal republic, which he develops in the Republic, extending it further, and extending it in this direction. We need not only to have a justly ordered society, but we need to pay attention to the grounds of morality, you see, which he sees in belief in God. Well, so much for Plato on God and cosmos. You might think he would have fared well in Nathaniel Hawthorne's New England. Yeah, there was Platonic influence in those days and those parts. You might think that Calvin's Geneva would have appreciated Plato. Well, Calvin was closer to Cicero than to Plato. But Cicero had been influenced a bit by Plato. The Platonism was still an influence in Cicero's day. So, an interesting guy. And when it comes to political matters, you find Plato both blessed and cursed by the writers. He's treated as the source of all ideological totalitarianism, fascism, and so forth. But he's also treated as the inspiration for the whole conception of a just society. Interesting, paradoxical sort of thing. Okay, any questions, comments about Plato on God and cosmos? David?
I have a question about Plato's
I can't hear you.
I have a question about Plato's concept of the concept of God.
Yeah.
So it seems very clear that this demiurge has reason, but it's what reason is working with. But besides the personification that he uses, is there any other indication that this demiurge is self-conscious?
Yeah, that's a good question, David. Notice that Plato says that the demiurge has reason, or is reason. Has is more like his language. You sometimes wonder if what he really means is he's simply personifying the notion of logos or reason, an abstract rational order. You see. Particularly in the Timaeus, he seems to be personifying and using that sort of personified language. And so you ask the key question, if we want to know if Plato's is what we might call a personal God, a personal being, you'd have to have consciousness, self-consciousness. So there is self-awareness in the process of thinking rationally, thinking how to order for good ends the universe, you see. Did Plato think that way? I guess I'm inclined to think so. And I suspect for two reasons. You try to figure out why you think what you do. And I can see two reasons why I'm inclined to think so. One is that he plainly has no place in this scheme for the Greek pantheon, all the various Greek gods. And in terms of running the universe, this God seems to take that place. Which seems to imply, if there is to be an analogy, some kind of personal being. Now, that may be an overly naive sort of reading. Certainly, Plato's successors became increasingly clear about a conscious personal God, building on what Plato said. Okay, that's one reason. The second reason is that I'm not sure how clearly Plato distinguished personification from the real thing. Now, we have no difficulty ourselves in distinguishing a personification of nature, when you write nature with a capital N and say she, from the notion that there really is a personal being consciously engaging in rational activities. I'm not sure that that's a clear distinction at this stage, by virtue of the way in which the Greeks seem not to have a clear conception of person. The distinguishing thing for them is between that which has soul and that does not. And soul is the source of life, of spontaneous motion, as well as of consciousness and thought, you see. And the distinction between what becomes known as rational soul and non-rational soul, I think I'm right in saying, doesn't emerge until you get to Aristotle. You see. And without that distinction, are we in a position to distinguish person from personification? Okay. Does this walking through the Timaeus selection help? Okay. You probably feel you want to go back and mull through it again, and then again, once or twice. But very influential segment of Plato. Probably had more to do with the shaping of Christian theology than any other passage in Plato. Okay. Carl King, you here? Afterwards. Okay, let's turn our attention then to our next topic, which I think you'll find a lot easier to get a handle on. Plato on the human soul. This topic is pervasive in the dialogues. In the Republic, sure. In the Phaedo, that you've been reading a portion of, in the Phaedrus that you're reading this week, as well as in the Timaeus and the Laws and elsewhere. You observe I keep referring to the Republic. Until you've read the Republic through, you're not educated. Read the Republic. You get paperback editions, real cheaters, no excuse, read the Republic. I mean, it's classic. After the Bible, perhaps the most influential book in the history of Western civilization. Read the Republic. Get the message? Read the Republic. Okay. What the cosmos is as a whole, body and soul, the human individual is as a microcosm of the whole, a part of the whole, body and soul. And Plato means that in a sense that's very analogous to the way body and soul are referred to in traditional Christian language. That is to say that these are two separate entities that are united as one being, only in this life. Okay? Two separate entities that are united as one being, only in this life. I say that's sort of traditional Christian language. I say it that way carefully, with intent. I'm not sure that's biblical language. In fact, I'm quite sure that's not biblical language, though it may be typical Christian theology, because of the influence of Plato on the shaping of theological readings of the biblical language. Okay? But Plato has a clear-cut body-soul dualism. And he's very explicit that the soul is eternal, the body is generated, dies, disintegrates. The soul rules, guides, gives life to the body, unifies, coordinates its functions, like the picture we just had of the world soul in the cosmos. And this is simply the standard sort of Greek notion of soul. Remember that I said the word soul could well be translated simply life. To speak of a living soul is in that sense a tautology. Now, one of the things that he gives most attention to is the eternality of the soul. And by eternality, I mean precisely that, not just the notion that the soul survives death. That's not saying the soul is eternal, but only immortal. And there's more to eternality than to immortality. The eternal is uncreated, and always was. So to talk of eternality, you have to talk of both pre-existence and immortality. The soul precedes physical conception, birth, and survives physical death. The eternality of the soul. Now, quite obviously, Plato is not the sort of writer, after all he is a philosopher, to simply assert something and take it for granted without giving reasons for believing it. He wants his beliefs tethered. So what sort of arguments does he use to tether the belief in the eternality of the soul? And I've identified 4 arguments that I find in his writings. There may be 4, or you might cut the cake differently and organize them into more or less. One of them that you run into in the Meno and the Phaedo is an argument from knowledge by recollection. You remember Socrates' encounter with the slave boy who had never studied mathematics. And Socrates, with his intellectual midwifery, is able to bring to birth in that fellow's mind and bring it out into the open in verbalized form, mathematical knowledge that he had never learned. And the conclusion is that it must be innate. It must have been in the soul that came into this body. So the soul must have pre-existed the body and all its this world experiences. So you get that argument from innate knowledge to a pre-existent state in which that innate knowledge was acquired. That is to say, the soul, freed from the encumbrances of a body, is able to think, clearly perceive with the eye of the mind the eternal forms. And it's that which is recollected under the stimulus of dialectic. That's the first argument. The second is an argument from the cyclical recurrence of opposites. From the cyclical recurrence of opposites. You can read this on page 117 in the Phaedo, but I won't take time to read it to you. You can check that yourselves very readily, get clear about it. Essentially, what he says is this: if the soul pre-existed the body before it came into this life, where did the soul come from, if not from the death of some other body? So you get a cycle of death followed by life, and in that case, at the death of this body, a soul which pre-existed can exist independently then of this body again, and it will survive death and be immortal. Now, a couple of things in that are interesting. One, that he's playing with that cyclical view of time processes that a lot of the pre-Socratics had. Cyclical view of history. Cyclical view of nature's processes. Cycles brought about by the conflict and separation of opposites that are drawn together and then separated by alternating forces, as it seemed. We noticed it with regards to the cosmos, you remember, where God, as it were, winds it up and then lets it go and it unravels, and winds it up again and lets it go and it unravels, you see. That cyclical process, Empedocles' opposite forces, attraction and repulsion, love and hate, as he calls them, so forth. So that's one of the interesting things in this. The other thing, of course, is that what he's talking about is some notion of transmigration, reincarnation. So that your moral development, which is what Plato is so concerned with, your moral development is not just in this life, but forever and ever and ever, you see. And if you make progress in this life, you'll get a better beginning next time with a better bodily situation. But if you flub it in this life, you'll end up in something worse. And the chauvinist in him says a man might become a woman and a woman a beast. We've come a long way since people could get away with saying that. The notion of successive incarnations is involved in this cyclical view. That's the second kind of argument. The third is that the soul is a simple rather than composite thing. Now, the terms simple and simplicity in this context have nothing to do with being simple-minded. To be a symbol is to be an indivisible unit. Theologians talk about the simplicity of God, and they certainly don't mean that God is simple-minded. What they mean is that God is indivisibly one, and even the Trinity is an indivisible unit. The simplicity of God, in that sense. Now, the soul, being immaterial, is not a composite of material parts. And he has an argument which you might formulate this way. What is immaterial is unchop-uppable. What is unchop-uppable is indestructible. What is indestructible is immortal. Okay? I don't describe it here with the word unchop-uppable. But the idea is this. If it's immaterial, it's indivisible. If it's indivisible, it's indestructible. If it's indestructible, it's immortal. So the soul, being immaterial, is immortal. This is a natural immortality. In and of its own nature, it is immortal. It doesn't have to be sustained in existence. In and of its own nature, it is immortal. Natural immortality. By its own nature. It is self-existent. Now, the paradoxical thing is that Christian writers, even St. Augustine, use that argument for the existence of the soul. While it seems to me that no consistent theist would want to argue that the soul is a self-sustaining, self-existing thing that exists by its own nature. Yes, sir. But the very essence of theism